Hey there, it's me again, Jeff from Circuit Demon. What I want to talk about today is how to set up your Bluetooth app for your headlights, or the parts you bought from us. Thanks. So the first thing we're going to want to do is understand which Bluetooth remote we have with your headlights or your parts. It should say on your order. There's a really easy way to find out. Just look at it. So this is our Circuit Demon Magic Light app. It has two outputs. There's two chips in there to control two different LED components. There's also this Morimoto XBT remote. This has a carbon fiber trim piece around it for mounting. And this is going to have three outputs for three different LED components, pairs of. So that's the easiest way to see is one is larger. It says XBT, carbon fiber, blah, blah, blah. We're going to talk about the Magic Light one first. This is the more common one we use for setups. So it's a quite simple setup. From one side of the remote, it goes directly to your car's battery, or if you prefer some sort of ignition source, we'll talk about that in a minute. The other side is going to have a split, and there's these small boxes. These are the LED drivers. Their job is to take the raw 12 volts from the battery and the Bluetooth remote and dull it down to whatever milliamperage each of the LED components uses. It is very sensitive. So make sure that you use the color coordinated plugs, or if you purchase parts, you're using the correct LED driver to the correct component. If it is a higher power driver and you're plugging it into something that needs lower power, it may damage the LEDs or shorten the lifespan of them. So that's important. So on this headlight setup, you're gonna see that we have two outputs from the remote. We have the demon eyes and the gills in the high beam area. And then that's going to go to a white and red tag. If we look on the back of the headlight, we're going to see those same white and red tags with the same white plugs. So I will cover how we weatherproof these, which you have included in your full headlight set, after I show you how to set this up. But let's go ahead and plug this in. So now that we know which remote we have and we see the components laid out, we are going to want to download the correct app. So I'm going to go over the Magic Light one. Like I said, you will have this sheet as well as the QR code on the remote itself. There is a link for the Apple or Android stores. Once we download that, we're going to open it on our device. I do want to note there is some information in here we will go over, but the stuff in red is quite important. That's why it's in red. Check it out. So I just opened the Magic Light app on my phone. As you can see here, there are no devices. If one or two pop up, it might be another device in your proximity that uses the same app or same software, firmware, anything. So from here, we're gonna go ahead and plug the power in to our headlights. Now these go into a pairing mode for 60 seconds, and then after that, they stop looking for new devices to pair to. The benefit of this is, number one, it's not gonna use the car's battery to constantly search for a new source. And secondly, if you're at a car show, or something like that, somebody can't pair to your headlights and turn them on a different color. So we are going to see two different devices. These have very random names to them. We can rename these later. I'll show you how to do that. So we're going to go ahead and click the top one. It's going to ask me if I want to name it. I'll say number one, just for now, confirm. And then we'll do the same with the second one, and we'll name that number two. If you want to name this which components you have, say for this set, gills, demon eye, or whatever else, feel free to do so. So from here, it's going to go ahead and ask us a few questions the first time we click on the device. So the device type is going to be RGB for these components. If you have a setup that has RGBW components, which have a white LED chip, it should automatically recognize that and choose that device type. And then the RGB sorting is fine. It's going to be RGB. That's good. So we hit confirm. I will do that on both of them. And from there, I can go ahead and click number one. And we have a whole color wheel here. We could change whatever color we want to. As we could see in this setup, the gills are what I have control of right now. Let me go ahead and turn off the demon eyes just so we can focus on that. So we do have a clear cellophane protectant wrap on this because these are going to ship out to a customer. So bear with the oddity of that. But yeah, from here we can go ahead and choose whatever color we want. I do have some pre-selected ones at the bottom here, or you can go around the circle. As far as this feature goes, if you want to select, say, like this cool like teal color, that I selected in the circle here, I could go ahead and replace, we'll say the one all the way to the left here, the green color. If I hold on that tab, it'll change it to whichever color I currently have the wheel on. Let's say I want to have this cool, like kind of light pink color. I'm going to replace that same tile, the first one, with that by holding it and change it to it. The next thing we have is the brightness feature on the bottom. So if we want to have kind of a dull look to it or a full bright, we can do that. And then once again, I did set up this pure white tab. As you can see, it's a little bit off the center to have a little bit more of a warm white. And that's what I use in my personal car for like driving around town, just so I could have like a legal in our state color. The next bottom tab you'll see is functions. Now this has pre-built functions that we can choose from. And there's a couple different ones. These are mostly just changing colors, any sort of like strobe. There's like gradual changes that kind of come in and out, which is kind of cool if you want to have a different look. The strobes definitely grabs the attention. And then the 7-color jumping. There's 20 different ones of these. Next tab down at the bottom is disco. This is based off your voice or the volume that it has. So this is like if you have music playing, or if you just want to yell at your headlights and make them turn on. The custom tab at the bottom is going to be where you can create your own sequences, just like the functions have, like different gradual changes. This you could actually create your own. I just set this one up. This is just like purple and pinks kind of changing from one to the next. So you could choose the speed, you could choose how it jumps. So the music tab at the bottom, you could select songs from your library and play them. Most of my music is copyright protected, so I can't play it in the app. So we're gonna skip this one, but it goes to the beat, you know, funky stuff. The last one at the bottom is the camera, and this is actually probably one of the coolest features, I think. So this one actually allows you to use your camera on your phone to pick a color that you want your headlights to be. So if you have a very particular color, say it's like a light teal or like an orange or like a weird red color, you can use this to exactly match that hue. I do recommend that you try like a few, because in certain lights it might not look the correct color you're looking for on the phone. But for example, I'm going to take a picture of this red tag here, and we can see that it turns it to that red color. I can do my glove here, and it turns to a light blue. Look, it matches. If I want to do this yellow tape, it's going to turn them yellow. So it's a really cool way to match your car's accents, whether it be your wheels or other trim pieces, and just kind of complete the look you're looking for your car. The Demon Eye channel is going to be the same thing. So we can choose whichever function, color, etc. from there. So I do want to cover what this says when it talks about LED's biggest enemy is heat. Any sort of heat, whether it be automotive or other like residential, whatever LEDs that you have, the thing that's going to shorten their lifespan the most is going to be heat or water. So in a headlight, there's some heat that can be generated. We do a couple things to try to help mitigate that. Number one, we add additional vents to the headlight backing. That also helps with any sort of imbalance in temperature or humidity, which could cause condensation. So kind of 2 in 1 with that. The other thing that we do is with certain components, we will add heat sinks, and that'll just help wick away any heat that is being applied to the LED. The one component that is very, very close to a hot part of the headlight is the Demon Eye. So the projector, whether it be LED, HID, or halogen, typically sees the most heat in the headlight. So the Demon Eye we want to be a little bit more protective of than the other parts like a halo or gills or a sea light. So with the Demon Eye, what we strongly recommend is when your low beam is on, you turn that component off. And it's as easy as when you go on the app, you just simply click that power sign, and it's going to go ahead and turn that off. The other thing is when your low beams are on, that is so much brighter than this accessory LED that it overpowers it anyways. So you're really not missing out on any features by turning it off. You're just helping it last longer. So this is all gonna be run off our car's battery power. The reason that we send the setups out like this is number one, it's the most straightforward way to install these headlights without having to cut or splice into wires on your car. The second one is most of the time people love to show these off on their car at car shows, meetups, and a big issue with having it connected to the ignition or any other sort of power source on the car is that source can only turn the lights on if the key is in the ignition and turned. And I don't know about you, but I don't feel super comfortable about leaving my car with the keys in it and the ignition on. The other thing that the ignition does is it also turns on other parts of the car, like the gauge cluster, the stereo, the radio, the fuel pump, that can kind of pull power from the battery. So these do have a very, very low draw, even when they're on. And what we like to do is use the battery for that. Once again, you don't need the ignition. You can lock the car up, turn the lights on, walk away, and come back hours later. Your car is safe, the lights are still on, you're good to go from there. With that, you will have to turn these on and off with the app when you want to drive around with them. So if you turn your headlights on, these don't come on automatically. You would just reach in your phone, open the app, hit the power symbols, and it would turn those components on. If you want these to come on automatically with the car or with the headlights, we are more than happy to show you how to do that. You will have to splice into the car's wiring or use some sort of like T-tap or fuse tap, but it's definitely an option that we support if you want to do that for your car. Just contact us and we can lead you in the direction to do that. So we have the app downloaded on our phone. We paired to both of the controllers in this. The next thing we want to do is make sure that we weatherproof the connections. So if you look at the headlight and the remote, everything is very sealed and tight. We use glue-lined heat shrink. We use dielectric grease in here. Everything is nice and sealed up. Same with the headlight. The one piece of this puzzle that has any sort of weak point is going to be these connectors. So not only do they have the pins for the power of the LED components, on the back side as well, there are small windows where water can get in. If water gets into these, what can happen is it could bridge the electricity on these pins and cause some sort of weird glitches in the headlights. So what we want to make sure we do is seal these up as best we can. And lucky for you, we include all that stuff with our full headlight sets, or we sell it as an option if you're doing it yourself at home. So I just want to go in how to install that. Doing this for 5 minutes, taking the time to do this now, will definitely save you any sort of headache in the future if water were to get in these connectors. We're going to go over the XBT now. So if you have this beautiful looking remote with this luscious carbon fiber, now's your turn. So the first thing we want to do is just identify the components that we have. So once again, we have the XBT remote. Those are going to go to a barrel connector here. See that little guy? And then those will go to the wires directly to the battery. These also come with a connection to a fuse tap if you prefer to run off ignition or some other power source. We'll talk about why or why not to do that in just a moment, but that's that. The other side is going to split. So one side will go to one headlight, the other will go to the other side. And these are the LED drivers. So these components actually choose how much power, milliamperage, is sent from the XBT remote to the components. Obviously, some LED components are larger than others, so we want to make sure as they get the correct amount of power. Now, if you bought a set of our headlights, we do pre-label all of these with different colors. If you bought these as a DIY, I would strongly recommend that you keep the driver, these little boxes, with the components that they go to. If you choose a larger driver for something that needs a lot less power, it could overpower it and cause damage. So now that we have a lay of the land as far as the Bluetooth remote, we know the drivers are in between the Bluetooth remote and the headlight itself. And we can see all the color codes to make sure that we're plugging the right components in. We're going to want to go ahead and download the app. So for this one, you're going to search for the Morimoto XBT. These also come with a sheet if you bought a full set of headlights that has a QR code to send you right to the App Store, and download that as well as some other information we're going to go over in this video. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and open the Morimoto XBT app. And it's going to take me to the color wheel. It's going to pull up the last settings that I had set my headlights to, but we're going to go through and pair a new device and go from there. So once we have the app open, I'm going to go ahead and plug the power onto these headlights. So these turn on white automatically. So the second you turn them on, they should turn on bright white. If they don't, there may be a bad ground or power connection that you're tapping them into. Or if you use the fuse tap, it may be that that fuse is not getting power at that stage and you need to turn the car on or at least turn the key in the ignition. So once it turns white, we know that it's getting power. We know that it's looking for me to pair to it. So I'm going to go ahead and hit pair new. by clicking on the 3 bars in the top right corner and then the pair new logo. I'm gonna hit pair controller and then connect the controller to power and turn it on. We already did that. So I'm just gonna set my phone near it. If you already installed this in the car, you don't have to put it on it, but just anywhere near it, I'd say within like a foot or two. So it says success, party time, and I am going to click party time because that's just what I'm about. So at this point, I have this default page. It's gonna show the blue on the circle, and then these 3 little boxes blue as well. So these 3 boxes are actually the 3 different components we have in this headlight. So we have demon eyes, we have our gills, and then we also have a hex halo. The back of the XBT has which order these are in as far as 1, 2, and 3. As far as just getting to know your headlights, I was just gonna play around with it. So I'm gonna just click the first box, and once I click that, we'll see that there's a white highlight around that blue box. And I can go ahead and turn the colors whatever I want on this wheel. And then the right tone slider can turn them dimmer, or if I go all the way up, it's gonna turn them white. There is no white on the wheel itself. I do need to use the tone to turn them all the way up. So I'm just gonna leave them right in the middle there for now. The second box I'm gonna click, and then the third, all at the same time. I can choose all 3 colors at the same time. They're all gonna go to black or go to white, depending on the tone slider. Say that I wanted to split these. Say I want to have one a certain color and another component a different color. I can just unhighlight which one. So I'll say number 2, which is the hex halo. I want the components around it to be like bright red. So I'm going to go to red, I'm going to leave it there, and then we can see the hex halo is still blue. Now say I want to change the hex halo, only that to like purple. I can go ahead and do that by selecting just that second box. And then say I want to drive around town and want to set them all to white, I can go ahead and just swipe the tone up and click all 3 boxes. The other options we have in this picker tab is going to be fade. So this is just them going in and out, and you can select the speed on the right side there, as well as the color of each. And then strobe is exactly what it sounds like. It just flashes the LEDs in a strobe pattern. Now, if we want to save a certain configuration, so say I really like this colorway, I liked having the red demon eye, red gill, and purple hex, I can go ahead and click the top right heart, and that's gonna save it as a preset. So say that I want this for like a show, this is the setup that I use for shows and meets, but I wanna drive the car around, I'm gonna click it to all white. Once I get to that show, if I go to faves at the bottom tab where it has the heart, you can see a bunch of different configurations I've saved. I can go to that last one and hit apply to all, and it automatically saves that colorway that I love to have at shows and meets. The other thing that I love about the faves is if I want to have like a daily driver favorite, I can just go ahead and do that as well. So for that, I have selected the first and second channel as white and the third channel as black. I'll talk about why in just a moment. So I can apply that if I'm driving around, boom, street legal, no problem. So the next tab on the bottom we're gonna talk about is themes. Now these are just preset themes of different color scrolls. You can choose the speed in which you want it to change at. But we have a bunch of different colors. We have like all 7 colors, crossfade. We have a very patriotic red, white, and blue at the very bottom, and all that. We already talked about faves as far as setting up pre-selected colors that we chose for different uses. And then the shop, don't go there, go to circuitdemon.com, do yourself a favor. So that is the Morimoto XBT. If you want to add additional remotes, you can do so by clicking those same top 3 lines in the right corner. I did want to circle back to what I said about turning the demon eyes or the third channel all the way down in color to black. So as it says in your Morimoto XBT sheet, heat is bad for any LED component, whether it be automotive or lights for your computer rig, or yeah, even these ones. Heat's always going to hurt the lifespan and life cycle of them. So what we do on headlights to help mitigate that is we add additional ventilation just to help circulate cool air into the headlights. That also helps with condensation, which is the imbalance of pressure, temperature, or humidity from the outside environment to the inside of the headlight. So that helps with cooling the LEDs as well as that. The other thing that we do is we will add heat sinks on certain components to help wick away that heat from the LED. Now, the main component that's going to get the closest proximity to a high temperature part of the headlight is going to be the demon eye. That's going to sit directly above the projector, whether it be halogen, LED, or HID. So what we recommend with that, when your low beams are on at night or during the day, whatever, is turning that component all the way down. So the reason we do that is having it off and not generating its own heat on top of that projectors is going to help prolong the lifespan. The other thing is you're not really missing any function because the LED, HID, or halogen projector is so bright, it usually overpowers whatever color you selected for the demon eye regardless. So that's what I recommend doing, and that's why I choose for my personal headlights to have my daily driver fave is white first and second component with the third demon eye component turned all the way down. The more you know. So as far as controlling these, we are going to only use the app to do so. So for this, if you get in your car and you want the lights to be on, you will simply pull up the Morimoto XBT app and turn them on or off. The reason that we use the app to do this and not a factory or car controlled power source is if you're at a car show or a meet, typically with like an ignition power, you're going to have your key in the ignition and turned, or even just in that, and then leave your car all day at a car show. That doesn't sound safe or realistic to me. So the reason that we have it directly to the battery is you could turn these on and off, leave the car, lock it up, the car is completely shut down, but the headlights are on and working however you have them set. The other thing is it is more of a straightforward install for you as a customer. You can simply just put the leads right to the battery and they work exactly how they should. If you do want these to come on automatically with the car's controls, we're more than happy to show you how to do that. But typically you would need to either use a fuse tap to the fuse box or splice or tap another power wire in the car. So if you would like to do that for your setup, we're more than happy to help show you how to do that. But for this, we just use the battery source because for most customers, it just makes more sense. All right, so the last thing we're just gonna talk about is after we have the XBT laid out, we have the app downloaded, we have paired to this and are controlling it and having some good fun times. We do want to look at the back and make sure that these are weatherproofed. So we do I think, a pretty good job of making sure that all these connections are sealed up. These have dielectric grease inside of them. They are waterproof heat shrunk, as well as the controller being weatherproof. So the last part that we would like to be concerned about is these connectors here. We can't do this for you. We can't seal them up before we send them out, but we do include a install kit with all of our full headlights, or if you bought parts, it's available on the site. It comes with dielectric grease and that weatherproof heat shrink. So we're gonna go ahead and show you guys how to do that. What could happen here is if water gets inside these plugs and bridges between these pins, it could cause the LEDs to turn on themselves. It could cause them to be miscolored. So if you choose one color and they turn a different one. So it's very important just to make sure that we do that. And it's taking the 5 minutes right now to do this is gonna save you a headache in the long run. And it's already included. You might as well just use it. Just do it. All right, we are in my Harry Potter lair under the stairs. So I do wanna show you guys how to weatherproof these connections, as well as maybe some quick troubleshooting if it's not working the way that it should. So if we come over here, we're gonna have our heat shrink that's included in all of our full headlights or our weatherproofing kit. Instead of a small tube of dielectric grease, we just use this here because we'd go through a lot of those tubes if we didn't have this, but it's the same stuff. And then we obviously have our connector ends. So what we're gonna go ahead and do is slip the weatherproofing heat shrink over this male end. This is the controller side. So usually what I do is I just make kind of like a rectangle with it, just kind of pinch it down like that. It just makes it a bit easier to go ahead and slide over these. So there's that, and then we have our component. Now, before we do anything, I would strongly recommend that you plug this into the component and make sure that it works the way that it should. The reason we want to test it before we do all of this weatherproofing is if one of the pins, like this small metal pieces, doesn't line up exactly, it might not display the correct colors or a specific color at all. So I would just strongly recommend doing that. If it does for some reason not do like blue or red or green, you can contact us. It's usually just one of these pins either not being locked in all the way or lining up. It's rare, but it's always something that I tell people to wait to waterproof before you test it. So now that we have this heat shrink over, I'm just going to sneak that back in a little bit and then put some dielectric grease in there. Now I'm going to load it up pretty good. What this dielectric grease does is it's non-conducive to electricity. So when I plug these in and the metal pins make contact, just like they are now, it does conduct electricity across the metal, but say water or some other sort of liquid were to get inside of here, that dielectric grease kind of takes up the space, it fills that area so that water can't get in. We have that over. I always like to just kind of make sure that it's centered so we have the same amount on each side. And then from that, we can go ahead and use a heat gun or a torch if you're very careful, or even like a hair dryer should do just fine. It's going to shrink down this rubber insulation and it's going to activate the glue inside of it to make sure that A, there's a nice firm connection between the two plugs, and B, make sure that no contaminants or water or anything else gets inside of there. So I'll show you guys how to do that. We'll probably edit out the horrible noise this makes. So we're just going to want to go ahead and just go back and forth pretty easy. You don't want to get too close to the heat gun. It might just take a moment to start activating that glue and rubber. So we can see it starting to form fit to the wires here. And once it starts to get nice and soft and kind of take the shape we want it to, I usually go ahead and take a small pair of pliers and just clamp down right in front of the plastic plug. So it's going to be there and there. As you can see on the remote side, it has that already from us, but that just makes sure that nothing gets past that point and could affect the actual connection these have. So some of the dielectric grease or glue might come out of the ends. That's fine, as long as this is sealed up. So now we have that sealed up, our LED is working, and it is going to stand the test of time. So if you have a RGBW component like diode dynamics, demon eyes, or our different C lights or boards, those are going to be a little different as far as how we turn those white. What we're going to see here is we have our color wheel. We can choose whatever color we want. If we select the center of it, which is white, it is a mixed white. What that means is it uses the red, green, blue, and white LED components in the board to create as bright of a white color as it can. Now, this typically looks a little bit like pink, so it's not like the cleanest white. What we recommend folks to do is if you go to the second tab to the right from colors is the warm tab. Now, this has the pure white available to it. It's going to be yellow for whatever reason, and we could choose like a dimmer or a brighter color. Obviously, we're going to choose full bright just for video purposes, but that's going to give it a nice pure clean white color, whereas once again if we go to the colors and select the mixed white, it does have that pink or kind of purple hue. So once again, if you are looking for a nice clean pure white, I would certainly recommend just hitting the warm white color. That's going to use just those white LED chips, not all four at the same time. That's it really. So I hope this was helpful. I hope that it helped you learn a little bit more about your lights as far as what the components are, and especially how to control them the way that you want them to work. I also want to let everyone know that right now, August 31st through September 9th, we are running 15% off most of the products that we use here. So check out the website, look for any parts that you're interested in using. Also, other YouTube videos on how to install it. Until then, I'll see you.